I found the first beats I ever made from 14 years ago. Let's find out how much better I've gotten at making music. I also want to share the 3 most important things I've learned over those 14 years of producing. But first, let me show you my reaction when I actually found these beats and listened to them for the first time in like over 10 years. All right, I just turned the camera on. I really thought these songs were lost forever. I can't believe I found them. I just found this old Facebook group I made for the first songs I ever released. There were these rap remixes of popular rap songs, and I would just make a new beat underneath them. But I found the Facebook page, and it had download links to 4 different mixtapes I made. So I downloaded those mixtapes. So here are the 4 mixtapes I downloaded, and you can see in the metadata, this song was created October 2nd, 2009. So that's 14 years ago. I'm 29 now, so I was 15 at the time. I think I was a sophomore in high school, but I've been listening to these songs in like at least 10 years. I'm so excited to listen to these, but they're probably gonna be so bad.
Hello.
Oh my god, I remember making this so long ago. I used to make all my beats on this thing. I didn't even make them in a computer. I made them on this machine. It had built-in drum kits that I could record the drums on. I would record my guitar in there. That's my old guitar back there that I have still. And I had this one little synth that I would record into it too. Oh my god, it's crazy. So it's pretty wild. I found all these songs I made 14 years ago in 2009. I mean, there's 4 mixtapes full of songs that I made. So I thought it'd be fun to take one of these beats I made from 14 years ago and remake it and see how much better I can produce it this time around with everything I've learned over the past 14 years. I've decided on the beat I'm gonna remake. It's a remix I did of Get 'Em High by Kanye. I know Kanye is super controversial now, but I made this beat long before all that, so let's just focus on the music. So I think the sample I used is really cool. I think it has a lot of potential, and my favorite part is when the verse kicks in.
Now, my flow is in the pocket like Wallace. I got the bounce like hydraulics. I can't call it, I got this word like alcohol. My freshman year, I was going through hella problems. Still I bit up the nerve to drop my ass about a call.
I think the way I chopped and filtered that sample sounds really cool, so I'm definitely gonna do that again. The main sample in the beat is this Temptations song called You're My Everything. So I think I literally just sampled the beginning of that song. I think I just need to pitch it up a bit to make it match the pitch of my beat. I only need the first 4 bars for the sample, so I'm just gonna delete everything else from that. Now, listening to the original beat, I think the drums could use a huge upgrade, so I'm gonna redo all the drums and hopefully make them sound a lot better.
It's in the pocket like Wallace. I got the bounce like hydraulics. I can't call it, I got this word like alcohol.
I do like how the drums sound kind of dirty and old school, so I'm gonna try to keep that feel, but with more modern samples and a better mix. So I just started going through some of my samples and also looked at other sample packs to find some good drum sounds to use. Then I programmed in the drum beat, and here's what I came up with. I think that drum beat came out pretty good. I wanted to keep that old school feel while making it more modern too. So let me show you how I did that. So I started with a more modern kick sample. Then I added in a more old school snare sound. But to help that snare cut through more, I added 2 more modern snare layers. Then some shakers for the groove. Then I added in some hat sounds for the bounce. Then I added these loops in just to make the whole beat sound a little dirtier. So here's what it sounds like when you put all that together. And if we compare that to the original drums,
it's in the pocket like Wallace. I got the bounce like hydraulics. I can't call it, I got this word like alcohol.
They sound a lot more full, and I think the beat is going to end up being a lot better than the original. Now what I got to do is add in that sample and chop it up and filter it. So let me listen back and forth to the original beat to see how I chopped it up and try to copy that. That's a good starting point for the chop. Now let me add some effects to make it sound a little cooler. The sample's really wide, so I'm gonna make it more centered. Then I'm gonna make it a little dirtier by adding some distortion. Then I'm gonna filter it with this EQ. And I'm just gonna use some basic sidechain compression so it ducks out of the way of the kick. So I was just messing around for a little bit, and I thought adding this phaser / filter effect sounded really cool. That just adds a little movement and gives it some character. Now I noticed the low end of my original beat doesn't sound that full because there's no bass in it. It's just a kick drum in the low end.
It's in the pocket like Wallace. I got the bounce like hydraulics.
So let me see if I can add a little bass line to mine. To keep the old school sound, instead of going for an 808 sample, I think I'm gonna try using a real bass sound. I think that could sound cool. I don't wanna mess with the groove too much. I just wanna layer it under those sample chops. So that sounds pretty good for the verses. Now I know the chorus has the full sample playing, so let's take care of that and put in a different bass line for the chorus. So I'm gonna spend a little more time arranging and mastering that beat, and then at the end of the video, we can compare the old beat I made 14 years ago and the one I just made today. But before I show you that, I just wanted to share with you guys 3 important tips I've learned over all these years of making music. Obviously, there's a lot of technical things I've learned, but I wanted to keep these tips more general to help anyone who's making any genre of music. So the first thing is an obvious one, but it really needs to be said. There's only one way to get better, and that's to make a lot of music. To make as much music as possible. I mean, look at these old mixtapes I made in the first year or 2 that I made music. I made like 50 different songs in that year or 2, and I released them all. A lot of them were terrible, but I was slowly learning things along the way. So when I was learning to make music, I was in high school, so I had a ton of free time to work on this. That's why I was able to finish so many songs. But then after that, I went to college, I went to Penn State, and I partied a lot, I hung out with friends, I had tests and classes. I barely made any time in college to work on music, and the results really showed. I didn't get that much better at making music throughout college. Then once I graduated, I started focusing full time on making music, and that's when I really got a lot better. I know everyone's super busy with their lives, but you really gotta put in energy to carve out time to make music. It might not sound like you're improving day to day, but when you look back over a year or 2 years, you'll notice a big difference in your productions. The second most important thing from listening to my first songs I ever made to the ones that I make today is sound selection is so key. Whether it's the drum samples you're picking or the synth sounds you're choosing, if you start with high quality sounds, you're gonna get a higher quality result. The thing is, when you start out, you really don't know what sounds good. That's what separates a novice producer from an expert producer, is the expert knows what sounds good and the beginner really doesn't. So how do you get better at that? Well, I think there's really 2 ways. The first way is to use reference tracks. Pick popular tracks that you like and really analyze what drum samples they use, what synth sounds they use, and compare those back and forth with your own tracks. And do it ruthlessly over and over. If yours sounds worse, try new samples. The second way to get better at sound selection is just use someone else's sounds that you trust. I mean, I've been trying to learn what sounds good for 14 years, so that's why I've set up my website, bigzsounds.com. I have my drum packs on there, synth packs on there, and there's plenty of other people that make great sounds out there. You can just learn who to trust for good sounds and use their sounds. The third thing I think is really important is when you finish a song, just release it. It doesn't matter if nobody's listening to your music yet. It doesn't matter if it's embarrassing because you don't have any plays yet. With every song you put out into the world, instead of just keeping it on your computer for yourself, you learn so much more. You'll learn how to work with singers, you'll learn how to market and promote and brand yourself. You'll learn what people like and what they don't like about your music. You'll have real data to check out. If you have 10 releases and one release did way better than all the other ones, you gotta check out that outlier and try to figure out what made that song perform so much better than your other releases. Then you can repeat that formula again and again. So those tips might seem really obvious, but I do think they're the most important things when it comes to getting better at making music. Now that we've done all that, let's compare my old beat from 2009 to the one I just made today.
Trying to catch the beat. 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 Now, throw your motherfucking hands. Get 'em high. All the girls pass the weed to your motherfucking man. Get 'em high. Now I ain't never tell you to put down your hands. Keep 'em high. And if you're losing your high, then smoke again. Keep 'em high. Nah, my flow is in the pocket like Wallace. I got the bounce like hydraulics. I can't call it, I got the swerve like alcohol. My freshman year, I was going through hella problems. Still I built up the nerve to drop my ass about a call. My teacher said I was a loser. I told her, why don't you kill me? I give a fuck if you feel me, I'm gonna follow.
Thanks for watching.
And if you follow
Peace.
the charts or the plaques or the stacks, you ain't gotta guess who's back. You see, I'm so shy that you thought I was bashful, but this bastard's flow will bash your skull, and I will.